Welcome to the deep dive, where we take complex source material, dense articles, and, the thickest binders of history, and we distill them down.
We pull out the essential knowledge and those surprising nuggets you just can't forget.
And our mission today is laser focused. We are going to understand how the Apollo 8 mission, this radical, high stakes gamble born directly from tragedy, didn't just change the space race.
No, it arguably rescued the collective spirit of a nation during what was, well, its worst year, 1968.
It really is the ultimate turnaround story.
Oh, absolutely. We're tracking the journey from a near catastrophe, a technical failure that cost 3 lives, through this urgent, massive government redesign.
And then to a desperate geopolitical pivot that saw 3 men commit to a mission that had never even been tested.
They were aiming for the moon,
Okay.
right? But what they ended up finding was this unified vision of Earth that, America desperately needed at that moment.
Okay, let's unpack this incredible transformation. And we have to start exactly where the promise of Apollo nearly, burned up.
January 27, 1967.
Exactly. You've got Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee. They're strapped into the command module on the launch pad, preparing for the Apollo 1 mission.
It's just a routine launch rehearsal, weeks before the actual flight. And they're inside what was at the time NASA's most complicated vehicle.
But that complexity hid these catastrophic flaws. And what's fascinating here is that the crew weren't just victims of bad luck.
No, not at all. They were victims of a flawed design philosophy, one born of haste. Commander Grissom, he knew this block-eye capsule was a mess.
He called it a bucket of bolts.
Famously, yeah, he openly distrusted it. And he had every reason to.
Let's get into the technical details that made that capsule just an absolute death trap, starting with the atmosphere inside.
Okay, so the risk here was immediate and extreme. For this specific test, the cabin was pressurized with 100% pure oxygen.
100%.
Yeah, and at a pressure slightly above sea level. That means the cabin held 5 times the oxygen concentration of the air we're breathing right now.
So a single spark wouldn't just be a problem.
A single spark was an instant inferno. In that environment, normally fire-resistant materials, wire insulation, the nylon netting, the foam in the seats, they become explosively combustible.
It's like building a pressure cooker and then filling it with gasoline. Given the stakes of the space race, why would NASA ever sign off on this?
It was a bureaucratic dying spot. It really was. It was driven by the pressure to meet Kennedy's deadline. And when that inferno began, the crew had absolutely zero chance of escape.
And this is where the hatch design becomes truly terrifying.
Precisely. It was an inward opening plug hatch.
Uh-huh.
The idea was that the cabin pressure in space would seal it tightly. A good idea for space, but...
But on the ground, during an emergency, that same pressure worked against them, trapping them inside.
Right. We know that even the incredibly fit astronaut Ed White, in practice, needed 2 full minutes to physically crank that heavy thing open.
They had seconds, not minutes.
Not minutes. And you can see their unease in their actions. They didn't trust the system.
There's that famous photo they sent to the spacecraft manager, Joseph Shea.
Oh, it's chilling. With their hands folded in prayer, and the caption reads, "It isn't that we don't trust you, Joe, but this time we've decided to go over your head."
And there were verbal warnings too, right?
Direct ones. Wally Schirra from the backup crew told Grissom straight up after a test, "If you get the slightest glitch, get out of there. I don't like it."
Wow. And then the test began. They were plagued by problems from the start.
Mostly communications. Grissom was so frustrated he was recorded bellowing, "How are we going to get to the moon if we can't talk between 2 or 3 buildings?"
And then suddenly, everything changed.
Controllers saw a sharp biomedical spike, a rapid increase in heart rate, then a brief power surge.
And then the call.
A sudden, garbled, urgent call from the cabin. It was cut brutally short, followed by this agonizing scream over the comms loop. The whole thing took less than 20 seconds.
It's a moment of horror that just demands accountability. The investigation must have been brutal.
It was. The likely cause was a chafed wire that sparked. But the root cause was the culture. NASA blamed North American Aviation, the manufacturer, for shoddy work.
And North American blamed NASA.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They argue that NASA's insistence on the 100% pure oxygen environment was the real problem. And you know what? Both were right.
So who took the fall?
The consequences were swift. Harrison storms at North American. He was removed immediately. And Joseph Shea, the NASA manager who signed off on the capsule, he was removed and eventually resigned, completely haunted by it.
The program just stopped.
Halted. The investigation found over 1,400 problems that needed fixing. It was a fundamental cultural reckoning.
So what were the immediate technical lessons? What had to change?
They had to rewrite the safety book. First,
Yeah.
that death trap hatch. The inward opening design was scrapped for a new outward opening, quick-release, unified hatch.
A direct lesson. You have to be able to get out.
Always. And the atmosphere, that changed drastically. They abandoned pure oxygen on the launch pad, switching to a mixed nitrogen-oxygen mix to cut the fire risk.
And all the flammable materials.
Ripped out. Replaced by beta cloth, a fire-resistant fiberglass textile. These were essential, life-saving fixes.
But those changes cost time. NASA lost nearly 2 years, and the methodical plan they had was suddenly way too slow.
Immense pressure. The original plan, Apollo 7, then 8 with the lunar module in Earth orbit, then 9, then 10.
Yeah.
It was out the window. Rumors about the Soviet N-1 moon rocket were intense.
But the real panic came in September of '68.
Yeah, when the CIA delivered a chilling intelligence tip, the Soviet Saturn V mission.
Right.
The Soviets had launched it. It circled the moon carrying 2 tortoises and some other specimens, and it came back safely.
Proving they could do it.
It proved they had the capability to circle the moon and recover a crew. NASA knew if Zond flew again, it would be carrying cosmonauts. They were about to lose the race to lunar orbit.
And this is where the gamble comes in. George Low, who replaced Shea, he proposes something radical.
Totally radical. He says, forget the Earth orbit test for Apollo 8. Let's skip the intermediate steps and just shoot straight for the moon.
A test of just the command module because the lunar module wasn't ready anyway.
It was reckless, brilliant, and absolutely necessary. But it forced a crucial crew rotation.
Because the mission fundamentally changed.
Right. The prime crew, Jim McDivitt's crew, they'd been training for months on the lunar module.
Which they were now leaving behind.
So McDivitt suggested swapping missions with Frank Borman's crew. They were the command module experts. So Borman's crew takes the new, radical Apollo 8, and McDivitt's crew takes Apollo 9 later.
And this simple crew swap, this is something people rarely talk about, it had monumental historical consequences.
It's one of history's great turning points. NASA had this strict crew rotation system. Backup on one mission, skip 2, command the third. Originally, Pete Conrad was backup for Apollo 8.
Which put him on track to command Apollo 11, the landing mission.
Exactly. But when Borman's crew took Apollo 8, they needed a new backup. And the swap inserted Neil Armstrong into that backup role.
Which, following the rotation,
locked him into the commander's seat for Apollo 11. It shuffled Conrad out and put Armstrong, the man who would take the first steps, right in line.
That one scheduling change, born from a tragedy, put Armstrong in the most historically significant seat in history. That's incredible.
It just shows you the butterfly effect of the space race.
And while all this furious technical restructuring was happening inside NASA, the country outside was just tearing itself apart. I mean, we can't talk about Apollo 8 without the chaos of 1968.
It was an unceasing descent. America was in crisis. The Tet Offensive shattered public trust, leading LBJ to not seek re-election.
Then the assassinations.
Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. in April. Just 2 months later, Robert Kennedy. Cities were burning. There was so much internal unrest. The war felt endless.
The nation was just deeply, profoundly divided, and yet here was NASA, which had just healed its own wound from Apollo 1.
And had successfully flown the Apollo 7 test flight in October. They were preparing to do the impossible. It was this strange, high-flying point of light in the darkest year in recent memory.
The stage was set. The vehicle was ready. Saturn V number 503. A giant.
Weighing nearly 3 million kilograms, 110 meters tall, the vehicle of the gamble.
And the crew. Commander Frank Borman, who'd been key in the fire investigation, Jim Lovell, the command module pilot with more time and space than anyone, and Bill Anders, whose job was basically to map the moon.
And the timing. Just so poignant. Launch was set for December 21st, meaning they'd be rounding the moon on Christmas Day.
So the moment of commitment is the translunar injection, the TLI burn.
2 hours and 27 minutes after launch, they reignite that S4B third stage. They accelerate up to 40,000 kilometers an hour.
Making them the fastest humans in history.
And freeing them from Earth's gravity for the first time ever. And this, right here, is where the entire perspective of the human race began to shift.
As they looked back, they became the first humans to witness the entire Earth suspended in darkness.
It wasn't a map. It wasn't a globe. It was a single, small, fragile sphere.
And that's the Earth, with all the riots, the assassinations, the war, all the politics of 1968, and from 400,000 kilometers away.
It was just this magnificent, vulnerable blue marble, drifting in a vast, silent void. They turned their camera toward home.
And on Christmas Eve, millions of people are in their living rooms watching this incredible broadcast.
They see the Earth floating there, a site of unity that, politics and civil strife just couldn't touch.
But the mission was so far from safe, they still had to execute the ultimate risk.
The Lunar Orbit Insertion Burn, the LOI. This had to happen on the lunar far side, with the moon completely blocking all radio signals from Earth.
Total silence.
Total nerve-wracking silence at mission control. If that engine failed, they wouldn't just miss orbit. They'd be trapped forever in lunar orbit.
Yeah.
No hope of return.
The silence was the real danger.
It was. When Borman's voice finally crackled back on the line, Apollo 8 has a grip on the moon, it was, the greatest Christmas gift America could have asked for.
And this is the central discovery, isn't it? They went to map craters and conquer distance, but the real discovery wasn't the moon at all.
No, it was discovering their own planet as it lifted into view. That iconic Earthrise photograph. The drive to conquer a foreign world was completely eclipsed by this profound appreciation for their own home.
After 10 revolutions, they fired the engines one last time on the far side. The trans-Earth injection burned, sending them home.
But even the return was fraught with major risk. We focus on the launch, but the most apprehensive moments for NASA were the final hours. Re-entry.
The heat shield.
That new heat shield, the one that replaced the flawed Apollo 1 design, had never been tested against the extreme velocities of a return from the moon.
A flaw there could turn the whole thing into an instantaneous...
A disaster, exactly. But it held together. They splashed down safely.
And the achievement, coupled with the timing on Christmas Eve and that image of the blue marble, it really did bind the wounds of a divided nation.
The impact was immediate. NASA got thousands of letters. But one anonymous note perfectly summarized the mission's legacy.
What did it say?
It just said, "You saved 1968.
Wow. A stunning conclusion to such a chaotic time. It forces you to re-examine what success in exploration really means.
Think about it. If the Apollo program was engineered to conquer distance and plant a flag on a new world, why was its greatest gift that image of our planet as a delicate, vulnerable blue marble, the one that delivered peace to a nation torn by war?
What does that vast distance tell you about the importance of home, and whether true discovery lies in what we leave behind or what we see when we finally turn around? That's our question for you to mull over after this deep dive.